Hello and welcome to IFI LEADS 2022. This is a truly unique opportunity. A chance to hear from a quartet of distinguished professionals who are at the absolute apex of interior architecture and design. A masterclass from global leaders in the industry.
Embracing a new world reality, we need critical understanding and modern to today design considerations for all environments supporting our lives. Seeking new opportunities, we know that now, more than ever, we need vision, originality, and adaptability. IFI LEADS, the IFI Luminary Expert Architects and Designers Speaker Series, as an annual event, is conceived to learn from our established world leaders who shed light and offer inspiration for design thinking. With this 2022 IFI LEADS inauguration, we seek to reconnect with the broadest essence of creativity and its meaning.
Bringing these incredible speakers together is the work of IFI, who would like to express our warmest gratitude to our title sponsor, Sure Contract. We share their goals and forward-looking, human-centered approach to service and design, giving a smarter impact to all that we and they do.
At Sure Contract, we believe we have a responsibility to each other and to our habitat, to people and planet. For 2 decades, this core belief has been at the heart of our products and operations. Sustainability is what unites us. It is our foundation and our purpose. It is the air we breathe and the earth we stand upon. We believe that our similarities are greater than our differences. Everybody counts. People together, planet forever.
David Rockwell founded the Rockwell Group in 1984. The work of his award-winning practice ranges from restaurants, hotels, airport terminals and hospitals to festivals, museum exhibitions and Broadway sets. He has won the National Design Award from the Cooper-Hewitt National Design Museum, the AIA New York Chapter President's Award and the Presidential Design Award for his renovation of the Grand Central Terminal, as well as a Tony Award for Theatre Design and 2 Emmy Awards for Production Design at the Oscars. The Rockwell Group is regularly cited as being one of the most innovative design practices in the world. David Rockwell.
Hi, David Rockwell here, founder of the Rockwell Group, and happy to be with you. Such a provocative title, and in terms of looking at the new world realities, I think about my experience as a designer over 35 years and my interest in design. And it seems to me that what designers do is adopt to new world realities, find ways to take changing conditions of the world, changing needs, and make the world more understandable and more connected. I was lucky enough 35 years ago when I had my first project, which was a restaurant called Sushi Zen in New York City, to be invited into a world I didn't know anything about. So it was a changing reality for me to understand hospitality, understand how to, I'd been fascinated as a kid from the way design connects people. And so with that first project, we launched a 35-year studio, which now has hundreds of projects all around the world, all quite varied, but all in one way or another dealing with how people connect with each other. And I think that is the single defining design element that that characterizes our work. In many ways, I look at the relationship of theater and architecture, and one of the similarities is we extract a story. So there was a distinct story we created for Sushi Zen, which led to many other projects that are in hospitality, in transportation, entertainment, healthcare. And in each case, we try to go back to thinking about what the reality is of the group we're dealing with, how it relates to the world, do research, and come up with a sort of singular point of view. There's been nothing in my memory that has shifted our perspective as much as the pandemic has. In New York, I sat on 28th Street on March 13th and looked at a city that was thriving and exciting and full of life, discourse, conflict, and it was empty. We got to see what the city is like when it's all hardware and no software, and it was terrifying. And it reinforced the importance of the life, the people who animate the city, that's really what the physicality is built on. As a student of theater and architecture, and in some ways, I would say our studio is the intersection of those two. There are many things to learn: the importance of an audience, how a space embraces you, the importance of story. One of the other paradoxical things about theater is it doesn't last forever. Theatrical performance is a fixed amount of time. People may spend years getting ready for that 2.5 hour moment, and then that moment's gone. And there's a power to ephemeral. And I think as architects, we appreciate doing all the architectural work to get ready for that ephemeral moment, but understand that what we're really doing is setting the conditions for that connection, that ephemeral moment. We got to work with Tectonic Theater Group on an amazing project that I was just totally fascinated with, called the 7 Deadly Sins. They commissioned 7 playwrights to write 7 10-minute plays, each one about a different sin: gluttony, greed, the rest. And then each play was staged in a storefront with the seating out on the street. So it was a festival of moving people from storefront to storefront, where these performances took place behind the glass, but the seating was on the street, listening to it live on headphones. It was fascinating to see both the kind of meta performance of people who weren't sitting, but were walking in the street, watching the people watching the actors. And it was one of the first examples of theater coming back to New York. And we got to work with amazing people. And collaboration, ensemble, is the cornerstone of theater. The same is really true in an architectural space. So we think that notion of ensemble, whenever we can dive into it, is a kind of masterclass in theater. It applies to our architecture as well, and the 7 Deadly Sins was certainly an example of that. Another project that harnesses the power of empty space is a Luminarium. Luminarium is a neutral, highly engineered box that uses 360 high-definition projection, haptic technology in the floor, and state-of-the-art interactive feedback. And it allows a Luminarium to bring you at real scale to places you may never get a chance to go. Some of them you clearly won't. Our next installation is called Space, and it is about walking on the moon. The first installation was called Wild, and it's a walk into a safari. And it uses every element you can in this simple box to transform you, instantly take you to other places. So in some ways, it was like the polar opposite to 7 Deadly Sins, which technology couldn't have been simpler. In this case, it was technology, not for technology's sake. And I strongly believe technology, just for technology's sake, is inherently uninteresting. It's interesting if it has a story and a mission. So those are kind of 2 extremely different examples of storytelling. that were both done just post-COVID. About a year and a half ago, I was approached about designing the Oscars for the 2021 Oscar ceremony. I'd had a long experience with the Academy, having done the theater, the Dolby Theater, which opened in 2002 as an architect, and then in 2009 and 2010, doing the production design for the Academy Awards. I had a lot of interesting feelings about that ceremony and what it provided for the audience there. And I was intrigued because I knew from the beginning that everything would have to be different. They weren't going to do it at the Dolby. It was not going to be thousands and thousands of people. It was going to be maybe 170, maybe 200 people. But the conditions of how to do it were constantly in flux with epidemiologists, officials in Los Angeles, who up into the moment of a week before the show were working on protocols for making it safe. So we knew it had to be in a different space. And that immediately was the kind of project that got our attention because it meant embracing an existing space. And it's one of the things I feel we're going to start to see in the world as this pandemic starts to go into the distance, I hope, is there'll be a lot of bigger spaces that will need some reinvention. And I think thinking about spaces that can have reinvention that changes, that aren't permanent, something in between pop-up and something that is purposeful, that uses all the great assets of the space, uses the landmark status in this case, but creates a different use. So Union Station was going to be the home for the new Oscars. The main train hall, beautiful space, seen in many movies, was going to be our home. And we had to build within that a theater that didn't touch the walls, floors, or ceiling because of the landmark. So a freestanding invitation for 170 people to be part of the ceremony. Done very simply, and you never know what's going to be the key element that's going to drive the design. But there was something about no lighting in the perimeter that made us think about the table lamps. And almost like a candle at a table, that kind of hearth-like element contained the front lighting for the actors and also became the focus of each table. I've always been a fan of World's Fairs because I think they promise visions of the future. They invite many people to speculate on visions of the future. I was lucky enough to go to the World's Fair in New York in '64. So it was something I had been interested in, and we had referenced in other projects. We got the chance to work with the Smithsonian on a project called The Futures that sits in the Arts and Industry Building in DC, a building from 1887 that was built looking at World's Fairs and looking towards the future. So a little bit like Union Station, it was a chance to work within this extraordinary building and create worlds within worlds. Our role as the designer of the exhibits was to work with the Smithsonian, their multiple curators, as they reached out to artists and scientists and thinkers and inventors and create a way to put all of that information in a way that was hopeful, in a way that was easy to access, that invited looking at it from every possible angle. And it really was an opportunity to be part of the National Mall on a very provocative look at what the future might be. And the Smithsonian made the decision. This also began pre-pandemic, so you can imagine how much that stalled during that period. But they made the decision that it was not going to be the dark Blade Runner version of the future, that it was going to be a kind of hopeful, useful look at what are the optimistic or what are the ways to look at the future that involve our own agency. That opened up an opportunity for our lab, the lab at Rockwell Group, to create a series of pieces that take you through all of the installations called beacons. and they are haptic, non-touch, and that evolved as part of the conditions of COVID. They're beacons that let you know as you interact with them, start to question your thoughts about the future, your preconceptions about different parts about the future, and as you move through the exhibit, shows you your answers in relation to what people that day were thinking there, what people that week had been thinking there. And I think they do invite you to proactively take a look at what your thoughts are and what other opportunities are that you may not have been thinking about. Futures invites people walking through it to look at a continuously changing world and what their impact might be. And with the long overdue national focus on equity and inclusion, it really does invite you to make a stand and see where you stand on a whole range of issues, and to perhaps envision change, and to perhaps envision what your part of that conversation could be. So I talked about many issues that we consider in design, and I'm saving what I think is the most significant one for last, and that is empathy. As we got a chance to study our process and putting together the book Drama, which gives us a chance to look in the rearview mirror over the last 35 years, empathy, or places that connect people, is really the single driving force in our work. My hope is actually that the empathy we like to bring to projects is contagious, and that there is a lot more focus on thinking about design in a thoughtful way about what makes us connected and not what makes us different. What encourages participation, not encourages kind of giving up on the public realm. I'm hopeful about that, and I think that with every great challenge, there are opportunities that seem most powerful, and that's the one I'm excited about.